Hey, before we get in this episode, can you do us a favor? Will you go ahead and subscribe to the channel?
Will you ring that notification bell?
And if you would, give this video a like. Well, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the episode.
Let's talk developmentally speaking, glow up, and connecting through wrestling.
Hey everybody, I'm Morty.
And I'm Brian.
And on today's episode of Developmentally Speaking Presents Glow Up, we have Susie Spirit. Lori Thompson, how you doing? And thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I haven't been called Susie Spirit in 35 years now,
Wow.
but I still remember the name, and hopefully I'll remember some other things about the television show.
Fantastic. We start off every interview the same way with the same question, and it's one of the easiest questions to answer is, what got you into wrestling?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is really kind of a surprising story for me too. I was living in Las Vegas. I was originally a classical ballet dancer and needed a better business model, so I went into entertainment, which is a little bit more lucrative. And at the time, I was the principal dancer in the Folies Bergère, and we did 2 shows a night, 6 days a week. So I couldn't really go too many other places. I had my days free and was performing in a lot of other things, in a couple of television shows in LA where I had to fly out and then fly back to do my 2 shows at night. And I saw this interview for a television show that was being produced in Las Vegas. And I thought, well, this is perfect. If it's not something crazy, this would be great because I could still do my show at night and not have to travel back and forth to Los Angeles. So I went over to the Riviera Hotel to interview for this new television show. And I'll tell you, they showed me this video of Japanese women wrestling. And I thought, oh, they were amazing athletes. They were just doing phenomenal gymnastics. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not a wrestler. And I started to leave, and Matt Simber came running after me and said, wait. And said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a dancer and I'm a singer. I've done some comedy before. And I was a gymnast as a kid, but I don't wrestle. And he said, well, wait, this show is a comedy show and the wrestling is a hook. So in the 1-hour show, we're going to do about a third of it as wrestling matches, and the other 2/3 are going to be comedy sketches and whatever you want to do. If you want to sing, if you want to dance, whatever you want to do. So I thought about it, and I was a little nervous trying to learn how to wrestle, but I called him up and said, all right, I think I can do the show, but do you still want me? Because I have 3 requirements. Number 1, I want to learn the television industry. I want to shadow the producer, the director, the writer. I want to learn how television works. Number 2, I need spin-offs because I don't know how long I can wrestle. So I need some television spin-offs. And number 3, I'm the principal dancer in the Folies Bergère, the one on that billboard on the strip. 2 shows a night, 6 days a week, so you're going to have to tape around that obligation.
Absolutely.
And I thought, oh, good, they'll say no way. And I won't have to learn how to wrestle, and everything will just stay the way it is. And he didn't. He goes, yeah, I think we can do that. So David McLean and Matt Simber brought me on board, and the next thing you know, I'm in the ring learning how to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, it was April and Cindy. April played the Royal Hawaiian character, and Cindy played Americana. And they both had been trained by Moolah, who, is a legend in this industry. And they passed that on to a group of us to learn how to wrestle. And I will tell you that not all of us managed to stay in there. We did have a few people wash out. It's a little bit challenging. It surprised me. I was a gymnast and a dancer, and it was hard for me. And there were some people in there that didn't have that background that were learning how to do it. And boy, I have so much respect for that. That's a tough training program to go through. So that's how I ended up in the show in the first place. So I can keep telling you more stories, but if you guys want a specific one and what I can't remember, I might think I remember and tell you something that's not really true. But
It's okay.
That's how I remember it.
So prior to going to the tryout, the Glow tryout,
Uh-huh.
had you ever really watched wrestling? Like,
I hadn't really. I certainly knew what the WWE was, and I performed on so many different things from musical theater to I did an act on Star Search back in the 80s and a couple of television shows and films. And so, did been in just about any scenario you can imagine,
mhm.
throwing soft soap into the air for commercials. um, and so I wasn't really afraid of the challenge.
Right.
Um, and I also, what's really fascinating about wrestling is, I guess it's like anything in live entertainment, even the television show, because we tape the matches live,
Mhm.
it's live entertainment. And so what you do is you prepare, um, and then you have to go with the flow, right? You have to prepare for what you're doing and make sure you're very prepared. And you got to have contingencies in the back of your mind. And whenever you're working with somebody else, there's always the yes and factor. You have to deal with what happens and you don't deny it.
Mhm.
You go with it no matter what it is. It's yes, that happened, and yes, we're going to do this on top of that. So that's pretty much my background on it. Um, the wrestling that I saw, um, I think it was just a few things here and there. I did meet Hulk Hogan once on some other project I was working on. But what I did know is these characters are larger than life,
Absolutely.
and their fans are suspending their belief into believing whatever you want to share with them. And I really was fascinated by that concept. Um, so did I come in prepared? No. Did I learn how to do it? Yes. And did I have good people leading me? Yes, I did.
Absolutely.
Now, Matt Simber is his background is more comedy, television, film.
Hmm.
David McLean's background was actually wrestling.
Mhm.
And he brought more of the actual wrestling to it, and Matt Simber brought more of the television storytelling to it. So it was a good combination back then. It didn't end up being like a WWE show. Back then it was WWF, so they graduated to WWE after that.
Hmm.
So I think all of us were just trying something new. There wasn't a formula that we could look at and say, this is what we're going to do. It was really all brand new. We didn't know whether the comedy was going to work because it was just so corny. I mean, really corny,
Very.
but lovable.
Yes,
Lovable.
very. That's one of my favorite parts. I've talked about this before. I love how campy it was. I love how hee haw it was. Like, it reminded me of wrestling and hee haw put together. And,
Yeah, it's exactly right, Marty.
and
It's exactly what it was. It was a combination of that.
hmm
And we had to bring that. So we had to have those background characters that were just, like you said, hee haw ish,
hmm
larger than life. And we had to bring that into the wrestling with us and we had to maintain that. In fact, we had to maintain it on talk shows. So whenever we were interviewed, I wasn't Lori Thompson playing Susie Spirit. I was Susie Spirit on the talk show. And I
kayfabe.
will tell you, one time we did a show on the late night show with Joan Rivers. And I remember sitting on the guest couch with Mike Tyson, Linda Carter, who had been Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
and Linda Carter is just cannot understand how I can possibly sit there as Susie Spirit. And Mike Tyson asked me for my autograph because he was a big fan. It was just a fascinating time in the
That's
80s when
amazing.
everybody just latched onto this. I had a chance because I worked on a lot of the production side of it when I learned it. And so I was in Los Angeles doing some post production. When we lost David, I went in and called some of the matches, did the color on it, which is the challenging thing to do. David was amazing at it, and I didn't really step into his shoes, but I did fill in for him. And so while I was out there, I went to the office of the Shulam Rickless was the one that actually was the executive producer on the show. And I went to his office and they had all my fan mail and I went through it. And that kind of tells you the effect that this show had. It was on Sunday morning cartoons in some markets because they thought it was so cartoonish. And it was on at 2 a.m. in other markets because, this is sexy women rolling around the mat.
Yeah.
And it wasn't either. It's probably kind of a blend of both. So the fan mail that I got was from children saying, I want to be just like you when I grow up, Susie Spirit. How do I do that? To my best friend has been lying to me and she's no longer my best friend. What do you do when your best friend does that to you? To guys in jail saying, hey, if you ever need to be taken care of, you just let my friend Guido know and
Wow.
he'll fix it for you. Apparently we were very popular in jail. Back then they just had one TV and everybody had to vote on what they were going to watch and they all picked Glow. So we had quite a broad spectrum from college students to, like I said, prison inmates to little children to dads that used to watch the show with their sons. So there you go, right? Crossing generations.
That's the reason why I know what Glow is because my dad talked about it when I was younger. I mean, Glow was before. Well, I was born in '88, so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was before you.
Yeah, but my dad, when I was younger, when I would watch WCW or WWE or WWF, what do you want to call it, he would talk about how Glow. He always said that Glow was more entertaining than the women's wrestling on WWE, and I never got a chance because there was no reruns of it where I was. So once I got older, I started watching it on YouTube, and I fell in love with it because I love how campy it is. I love and like you said, you stayed in character. The thing about it is this was in the 80s when wrestling was still real. Like there was no even how campy it was, and like you said, all these characters in WWE, WWF were larger than life, and the fans just got rid of any type of disbelief that this was it was real to them, and up until when was it, 97 I think it was, that Vince came out and was like, this is entertainment, blah 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 blah, and everybody and that's when they stopped. People were still betting on wrestling, up until
my gosh.
right up until that day people were still placing bets. I think that it's amazing how well you guys could have people believe that it was real because WWE, they were larger than life, but in your show it was literally like a comedy hee-haw show that you made people believe was real.
Right.
And that's more than what they did in WWF. WWF, they went out there and did their thing, and they had these larger than life characters, but none of them were like superheroes. Like we were talking with Lightning. When she was out there, she had to be a superhero. She couldn't fly. She had to portray this superhero character, and that takes skill. That you talk about how you did comedy and all this other thing, and then got into wrestling. I can relate to that. When people come up to me in wrestling shows, oh, did you wrestle in high school? No, I was in choir. I was a choir nerd. Like that's. I was in musicals and plays and stuff, and it it really takes skill to be able to do that. More than your athletic skill, you have to be able to act, and you have to be able to improvisation is huge.
It is. Think on your feet. Marty, Gordy, I had probably the biggest challenge of the year one year. I was wrestling with one of the headhunters, Nina, and I can't remember the name of the headhunters, but she slipped, and pinned my arm down when I was doing a dive roll over her, and my arm dislocated.
I knew exactly where this was going because I've seen the clip and it hurts me.
So that wasn't obviously planned, but we got this particular show. They were doing some work in the room that we normally were in, and so they moved us into the convention space. So we normally had about 200, 250 in the live audience, and they moved us into the convention space. It was bigger, so they let a bigger audience in. So we had about 750 people in there.
Wow.
And we had to go with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to go with it. She starts dancing around like that's what she intended to do, right? And I, have to leave, but they have to decide now they're going to disqualify her because she cheated by breaking my arm. Okay.
Right.
And Jacqueline Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's mother, was playing my manager, and she's standing on the ropes cheering for me, and I had to pick my arm up off the mat. I mean, it literally is like hanging there, and you have to pick it up.
It's gruesome to look at. It was.
Do it. And I get to the ropes, and Jackie's going, "Get back in there, Susie! You're not a quitter. This isn't over yet." I'm like, Jackie, I dislocated my arm. I have to go. So here's a funny backstory about that, though, Morty. You'll appreciate this. I was always a very fair cheerleader, all about sports and being encouraging to other people. Was kind of my sort of thing. And I had a match scheduled to tape that day with Laura, who played Attaché. And Attaché is a fabulous wrestler. She went on to train many other wrestlers after Glow. And so she had broken her hand. So she had a cast on, and she'd been working with a cast on her hand. And I thought, well, that's not fair. So I had a sling that I was going to wear, so I could only wrestle one-handed too, because she only had one hand to wrestle, and that would be fair. So that was the match that was supposed to be coming up later that day. And I had to use that sling to go to the hospital to get my arm restored. So it gets worse than that, because I'm the principal dancer in the Folies Bergère.
Yeah.
I had to get permission from the producer in order to do Glow. And I said, you know what? And he goes, "Don't get hurt." And I said, "Oh, I won't get hurt. I mean, we're careful and we're trained. We're getting trained to do this. And so I won't get hurt." So I had to call and explain to him that we needed to get a hold of my understudies for at least 4 weeks.
Oh.
Maybe 6. Yeah. So I called my dance partner, and he picked me up and took me over to the hospital. And then a bunch of the girls came over to the hospital, still in their costumes because they finished the shoot, and they came over to the hospital, and Matt Simber came over to the hospital. It was a scene that was actually duplicated in the Netflix series with the broken leg with the Russian. So
Wow.
I don't. They got that story from someone, or maybe that happens in wrestling all the time. Who knows, right?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm an attorney.
Oh wow.
I do intellectual property and entertainment law, which was always my plan. I was going to start law school when I was in college. I got a chance to go to the International Ballet Competition. And while I was out there working with the Jackson Ballet, I got a call to do a show here in Las Vegas. So that's how I ended up out here in Las Vegas. And they were supposed to be opening the law school here in Las Vegas. And they had a problem with the basketball team. They lost all of their anonymous donors because of that. And UNLV actually got it was blocked from being in the basketball program for 2 years because of that. And so the funding fell out for the law school, and I couldn't start law school.
Oh man.
So when I started doing this show, I worked with the writer, Steve Blantz, and told him that, and he came up with a very cute sitcom for Susie Spirit and the Farmer's Daughter. And they were wrestlers, and Susie Spirit was in law school at the time, and they would get into situations where she would have to solve some problem, and the farmer's daughter was just the funniest character ever. I mean, between the two of them, the really smart one and then clever but not quite so smart,
Yeah.
everything came out of her mouth was like, now what are all these X's all over the buildings here in Las Vegas? X, X, X. Everything's X, 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 X. Do they just need a hug?
I like it.
I mean, just adorable skits that they wrote for her, and Becky was just an adorable girl. So that was a spin-off that we were going to do as a series that didn't get picked up. But I actually did end up starting law school about 10 years later after Glow. And so I've been practicing law for 24 years now.
Nice.
And I have worked with some wrestling shows, and I've gone to speak at the wrestling convention and talk to them about their intellectual property rights, about their contracts, rights of publicity, just a few things to sort of help
Oh, that's awesome.
performers. So that's where I am right now. This is my law office here. But I'm a little older than you guys are. I have kids your age.
Yeah. Well,
But I met these two guys who got a hold of me that had watched Glow as kids, and they wanted to do a documentary. They were filmmakers, and they wanted to do a documentary about Glow. And so I helped them with some of the legal issues. They had put together kind of a reunion for all of the performers so they could shoot it. They did a story about, to try to work in a thread through it, about Emily, who played, my gosh, I should not let my memory go this bad right now. Mount Fiji.
yes.
And what a beloved character, and what a beloved lady she was. So they shot that and put it out there, and that's when Gingy Conan, the producer of Orange is the New Black, saw the documentary.
Is this
Very
the documentary that came out in 2012, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
a great piece
she
of work.
put together a new show that ran on Netflix that was not based so much on the 1980s Glow, but more on the documentary about the 1980s Glow. And so the characters on that were the actual actresses, like Lori and Cindy and April, and not Susie Spirit, Royal Hawaiian, Americana. It was actually the real characters, the real actresses that then create the characters and become the wrestlers on the show. So some of the girls have sometimes seen a little parallels in those stories. I did see that series. I thought it was very well done. It was very different than ours. It wasn't cartoonish. It was a little bit more for adults and real.
Right.
Yeah. And my character, I think, was a little bit of the Russian character. And like I said earlier, she broke her leg, but she also got involved in the production of it.
I see that the what's her name? Alison Brie, is that who played that role?
Yes.
Alison Brie. That role really was. I've watched the whole thing, and I would look at it, and I would try to compare. I think for sure it was a mixture of you and Ninochka put together into one.
Yes, very
For
much.
sure.
The character, the wrestling character, was a lot of Ninochka in it.
Right.
And then the acting character was a lot what I did, my background, with the producer and the director, and trying to figure things out and trying to balance relationships as well. And it was.
I didn't even think about that part. Yeah, the character, because in that she's actually trying to get into that. Yeah, so that's definitely, I never thought, because I didn't know that until now. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I am so very lucky. I learned so very much. I'm so grateful to Matt and Steve. I even went to NAPTY to try to, I don't know if you know what NAPTY is. That's where they sell all of the syndicated television programs. So just to give you a little bit of background on Glow, Meshulam Riklis was looking for some kind of mechanism to create television content because the bandwidth was opening up on television stations. And in order to keep your bandwidth for your station, you had to provide content so many hours a day. And people couldn't afford a lot of the content to stay open. So what he wanted to do was barter the program. And to barter it, you put your own commercials in it and you give it away and have them air it essentially for free with your commercials in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to pay for the content and get their own sponsors and their own commercials. One second, let me get my phone up here. But what they can do is use that content to start to build their viewership and then get some money for sponsors for their other programs. And so I don't think that Rickless really thought that the show would be a big hit. He was just looking for content. And he owned, besides the Riviera Hotel, he owned Fabergé and Brood and a bicycle company. You may remember Painted on the Mat for Glow.
Mm-hmm.
They had Fabergé and Brood in the Riviera, right?
Yeah.
And so we did the show for about $100,000 an episode, which is a really small budget. He already had the Riviera, so he wasn't paying for the location. And it really looked a lot better produced than just $100,000. And that gave him the chance to get it out there. Well, it became so popular that it started being syndicated on some of the network stations. So like in a lot of markets, it was on NBC. But we didn't know that going in, that that's what was going to happen. You just cross your fingers and hope for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to go to sell the television show. That one year NAPTY was in New Orleans. And so we got to New Orleans and the police all picked us up and did an escort to the hotel. And they were big fans down there. And then we actually were on the floor with Vanna White, who's selling Wheel of Fortune. And I can't remember who was with me. I think Jeannie was, Hollywood was with me, and we had a wrestling ring set up, and we were taking pictures with people and doing a little bit of wrestling in the ring. That's how they were selling it to all the syndicated markets at the time.
That's awesome.
So,
just,
yeah.
You got to do all the cool footwork too. Like that's,
Yeah.
that's all, that's really cool, because that's something you'll take with you forever. That's just, not just.
I'll tell you, I do now, because now I'm working with a couple of wrestling shows. David McLean just launched WOW.
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie Bussey. Jeannie Bussey is the executive producer on it. She and her family own the Lakers basketball team.
Wow, that's cool.
And it just got picked up. So, I'm working on some of the legal aspects of it now on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to reconnect with David too.
That's awesome. I'll have to keep a lookout for that.
Yeah.
That's
they did another spinoff for David and I. It had a clever name, Razzle and Dazzle. That's what it was. It was a circus show. And I actually went to Italy with Steve Blance and Matt Simber to go talk to some of the people that do circus.
Wow.
To do this show. And David and I were going to be the ringmasters or the hosts. And he was Razzle and I was Dazzle. So I think they were great characters for us. It didn't get picked up, but it was a fascinating concept that Matt Simber and Steve Blance came up with. So it was good to see David again. He still looks like a little kid to me.
Yeah. Is
I'm
David
like,
McLean
how
the one
come I grew up and you didn't? He still has that fire in his eyes for wrestling. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet him.
No, we would love to have him on here for sure. Because what was the connection with Indiana wrestling?
He's from Indianapolis, and he did
Right,
Dick the Bruiser and all that. So yeah.
Because growing up, my dad always talked about Dick the Bruiser as well, and Dick, that's Indiana wrestling, Dick the Bruiser. So and all that connection. I would love to talk to him about not only about Glow, but also maybe talk to him about those days as well. Maybe on Connecting through Wrestling, make it 2 different episodes with him. But
oh my gosh, David just no matter what, he got beat up every show. The bad girls, as soon as they were done, they start beating up the referee or the announcer, right?
As a wrestling manager, I know that feeling. Every show, show that I'm on, I usually get something happens to me, but.
Well, Steve Blance was the writer, and he actually became the referee.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very cute. We did a series once of these musical numbers. I can't remember. It was like Susie's Music Box or something like that. And in one of them, I sang a song to the referee because Susie had a crush on him. And so she's singing, birds do it, bees do it, even educated fleas do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love. And in the meantime, he's in the ring and all the other girls are standing around just beating him up, and I'm following him around with just stars in my eyes and my heart beating. And it was very cute, very sweet.
Absolutely.
And you know what? You have to throw it out there. Comedy is hard. You throw it out there and see if it's going to stick. Are people going to relate to it? Are they going to understand? And I'll tell you, I got a lot of feedback from that, to see her have a crush on, the referee.
Absolutely.
And him being just, oh my God, what do I do? Scared to death of her.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah, it was cute.
I want to take a chance to tell you thanks for being a pioneer in women's wrestling, and I truly don't think that I don't think wrestling in general, women's wrestling, what you want to say, would be the same without you and all the Glow Girls. I truly,
oh my gosh,
I truly believe that you guys brought, with the comedy and everything, you brought a normalcy to what wrestling is today. With people nowadays, even though everybody knows it's a show, we all suspend disbelief because
you really have to, Morty. That's what makes it fun.
It makes
right.
it an escape.
It. Yeah, it really does. I did get on a talk show once and was a bit blindsided by it because it was a sports show and trying to compare it to sports. And, we were going through that transition right then of denying that this wasn't entertainment. This was actually a sport. And like you said, someone could bet on the outcome. And he said to me, now let's face it. First of all, right off the bat, wrestling is fake. This isn't real. You guys are just entertainers. And I said, what's your name again? Well, I don't know about you. When I got 200 and some odd pounds flying through the air at me, no, he said, what you're doing is you're focusing more on the sexual aspects of this. And it's fake, and you're just trying to entice people with sexuality. And it just caught me so off guard because we never really even thought about that. We were always thinking of, first of all, am I going to survive this match? And second of all, am I going to make it fun and entertaining and let people enjoy it and hear the crowd cheer and hear them laugh and hear them, get a little nervous. And so I said, now, I don't know about you. When there's 200 and some odd pounds flying through the air at me, the last thing on my mind is sex, but you might be different.
That's a good reaction.
Well, what are you going to do, Marty? We can't, you got to cross that line. You got to keep people's belief in their faith and their enthusiasm, and you don't want to break that wall for them and not let them have fun.
Right. I mean, I've got a scar across the front of my shin that's 4 inches long that shows you how real wrestling is. I mean, there's,
right.
You watch the clip of you with your arm. You can't fake that. That's absolutely. And what I always say to people is you can't fake gravity. There is no faking gravity. You hit that mat, you hit the floor, you hit, there's some things that are pulled, some things but fake is not the word for it. You could call it predetermined. You could call it choreography. You could call it anything but fake. Fake is the only thing that makes me mad. I hate when people say fake because those people have never spent a second in that ring, and they don't know how real it is.
Isn't that the truth?
And this is coming from an independent professional wrestling manager. That's a no name. I could tell you, it hurts. and
Yeah.
it's very
It is a
real.
little hard. I've got a little scar on my arm once because I was doing a match with Palestina, and she's a terrorist.
I remember.
What were we thinking back then? This is before 9/11. Can you imagine now? I mean, wow. So anyway, she would throw sand or she would do dirty tricks and get sand in your eye. And I got scratched and it got infected.
Oh.
And someone grabbed my hair once and it just actually caught my hair and was being pulled out. My mother came to watch. She's sitting in the front and she's cheering me on. And I'm like, Mom, aren't you worried? This hurts.
Yep.
And she wasn't worried. She thought, oh no, she'll be fine. I might not be, Mom. Come on.
Yeah. That's,
Oh. You guys are so much fun. I really enjoyed talking with you and your stories too.
yes.
And
Well, thank you so
it just
much.
warms my heart to hear how much this was an influence on your life.
Thank
watching
you.
this
Thank
and
you.
watching this with your father. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Advice for up and coming wrestlers, or anything that you have going on? If you're going to, I don't know if you're going to be doing conventions or anything. Anything that you have coming up that you'd like to share?
Well, there's, I think, as with so many things, success is where preparedness meets opportunity, right? So your opportunities come along, and you got to first of all know what opportunities match your assets, and take inventory of your assets, market them, and reinforce them. So when you look at wrestling, really, it's not so much about being the very best athlete. It's more about how creative are you? How can you think outside the box? And how can you make people identify with you? What's going to make them see part of themselves in you, or something that really touches them? So is it going to be a character that has some extreme characteristic? Is it going to be some special move that you do that they wait for you to do that? I pin people with the Susie splits. And I jump off the high rope and the turnbuckle, and land in the splits on them. And that was the end of them. When the Susie splits hit you, you're done. So think of things like that. Always keep your mind open. Watch other things. Educate yourself in everything that goes on. In order to reflect life, you got to know what's going on. You got to know what people are watching, what their interests are, and I think that's the best way to prepare yourself.
Awesome.
So I don't know what I've got going on right now. I got 2 kids that are just about to finish college and starting careers. One's in film and the other one is in gaming.
Wow.
He's in, resort industry. He finished his college.
Awesome.
And I'm still practicing law because I can't think of anything more fun to do. I get to be a part of these amazing projects that my clients do. And they're everything from a major casino resort that's looking at adding esports into the program, or it's the esports team that's doing the Call of Duty competitions.
That's too cool.
I just get to see so much. And I get to be at the table with people that take risks. And believe it or not, I was a wrestler, but I'm not really a risk taker.
Well, once again, on behalf of Brian and myself, I want to thank you so much for coming on. You've been an absolute pleasure,
Thank you.
And if you would like to do this again sometime, we would be more than welcome to have you on.
Very good, and thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you. You guys take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey everybody, it's Morty,
It's Brian.
and thank you for watching today's episode of Developmentally Speaking.
If you could, please click that subscribe button.
And don't forget to punch that bell icon so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a new video every Monday. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next
Developmentally Speaking.